A national awareness campaign is underway that's urging middle school students to speak out about violence. It's called Do the Right Thing Challenge, and 48 middle school students from around the country are being honored for submitting compelling stories about the way violence has impacted their young lives. Joining me now live with more is Peter Jensen with the National Campaign to Stop Violence. And Peter, great to see you. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, tell me about the stories that these students wrote. What did they have to say?
Well, they're heartbreaking. What we know is that youth across the country are exposed to almost every imaginable kind of violence, from seeing a parent shot by another parent, a best friend killed at a bus stop in front of their eyes because they were just at the wrong place at the wrong time, to someone seeing the emotional trauma that happens when a parent suffers from alcoholism, for example.
And were you surprised at all by the student stories?
Well, I was surprised the first time I saw these stories because they're compelling, they're deeply moving. I'm sorry to say I'm not surprised now because I've seen these stories now for a number of years and they're heartbreaking.
The students who've come to Washington are being recognized for their efforts. Tell me about that.
Well, it's a remarkable program. In each of the participating cities and schools, finalists are selected, a young man and a young woman from 7th or 8th grade, who, for their essay, reviewed by a panel of judges, are then brought here to the Capitol, the nation's capital. They meet in the rotunda, they get a chance to meet members of the Senate, the House, the Supreme Court, and their stories are then entered into the congressional record.
And how important is it that students are being given a voice to speak out about the violence that they've seen?
It's absolutely critical. One of the things we know, and I'm speaking a little bit as a scientist, is that when you've had some traumatic experience that's shaped your life, it's very important you have a chance to give it new direction and meaning, to make sense out of what's happened. And what the program does is it allows these youth to talk about what's happened to them, what they think maybe the causes of violence are, and then most importantly, what they can do to make a difference. And it's that commitment that I think is just transforming for many of these youth.
And what kind of impact is the violence having on the lives of these middle school aged kids? I mean, how's it impacting them?
Well, what we know is that violence has so many effects. If we were to actually pick the single biggest public health problem in our nation's schools, I would say it would have to be exposure to violence. But it's not just the school ground shootings or something you might hear about in the news. Even violence at the level of bullying or violence in the home. It's pervasive across our country, and it leads to everything from school failure to substance abuse to perpetuation of the cycle of violence again into the next generation. It's probably the single biggest cause of effects on our nation's health and our workforce of the many factors out there that we could control but aren't doing a very good job at it.
All right, Peter Jensen from the National Campaign to Stop Violence. I wish we had more time, but we've unfortunately run up against the clock. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.